Did anybody else grow up in a house with a Papa Bear chair? A Papa Bear chair, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's that chair that, whether spoken or unspoken, is your dad's chair. And if he's ever in it or wants to be in it, nobody ever tests him on it, right? You give up that chair. What I've found is that not every family grew up like this, which honestly was news to me because we were a recliner family. That's what my mom would always say. We are a recliner family. And so we had a Papa Bear chair. Here it is. That's a picture that I had my mom take and send to me. It's a big, comfy, leather, lazy boy recliner. It's so big. This is about what you feel like when you sit in it. You feel like a little kid. It just engulfs you, and it's the best. It's got the best view of the TV. It's a really nice chair. My dad would always let us use it as kids, or the rest of the family. We would be able to use the chair whenever we wanted, as long as he wasn't in the room or wasn't going to sit in it. But we knew as soon as he walked in the door that we had to get out of the chair. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't any but dad's. It was his chair. Before that, he had this one. As you can see, this one was well loved. This one actually got to the point that you could recline it all the way back to where your head would be on the ground and you were still sitting in the chair. And I just got my first recliner. It's not nice, it's not a lazy boy. It's small, it doesn't swivel and it doesn't rock, but it's mine. And I put it in my office with my LED color changing lights, with my Apple TV, and with my PS4, hopefully PS5, but we'll have to see. It's quickly become my comfort zone. And if you watched the intro video, as you could guess, we're going to be talking about comfort tonight. Comfort zones oftentimes get a bad rep. Right? We hear again and again, get out of your comfort zone. That's what we need to do, is get out of our comfort zone. But I firmly believe that just like all things in life, or most things at least, it's a balance. See, that's been a motto of mine, is that life is a balance. And what that means is almost everything in life, you can have too much or too little. If you've taken driver's ed, or even if you haven't, one thing that they teach you in driver's ed is that there are aggressive drivers. These are the drivers that drive 90 miles per hour all the time. They cut you off, they flick you off, and they get road rage, right? You're not supposed to be like that because it's dangerous. However, if you swing too far to the other end of the spectrum, they have what we call passive drivers, and these are the drivers that go 10 miles under the speed limit all the time, never take the right of way when it's their turn at a stop sign. They turn their blinker on way too early, and these drivers actually are almost as, or equally as dangerous as aggressive drivers, because they disrupt the whole flow of traffic. They become an obstacle on the road, and it's really hard to decide what they're going to do. You can't read and react off them. So what they teach you is you need to be assertive, not aggressive, and cautious, not passive. There's a balance. If you think about like pride and humility, as humans, we all need a certain amount of self-confidence that we believe we can achieve what we set out to do. If we have too much of that confidence, it becomes prideful and arrogant, and we get hot-headed, and we think we're better than we actually are. But if we don't have enough of that confidence, then, simply put, we become with self-pity and self-hatred, and we think that we're these losers that we actually really aren't. We need to have confidence and humility to believe that we are worthy of being loved and capable of achieving our goals, but also that we're human and we're flawed. And comfort, I think, works the same way as any of these, where you can have too much and it can be or not enough. There's the right time and then there's the wrong time. For example, one thing that I like to do in my free time is play NBA 2K. It's a basketball video game, and I like it because it's basketball. It gives me a chance to compete, which I like to do, and it makes me think, read, and react, use my brain, all from the comfort of my couch. And there are nights where it's been a long day and I've put in a lot of hard work, or I've gotten to the end of a long week and I've just wanted and deserved a break. I've been running around tirelessly, and so I'll sit in my recliner and I'll turn on 2K and I'll play a game or two. It's restful, relaxing, and a good example of what I think a healthy comfort is. However, there are also days, if I'm brutally honest, where I wake up and I've probably slept in too late and I've got chores to do or work to get started, and rather than go do that stuff right away when I wake up, I'll turn on a game and play a game or two of 2K, and then one turns to 2, 2 turns to 3, and all of a sudden I've wasted all of this time because I haven't gotten out of what's comfortable. I think comfort has quickly and increasingly become an idol in our culture today. It's probably always been there to a degree, but especially recently, it seems. If you don't believe me, take a look at some of these inventions. These are real inventions based around the idea of ease, convenience, and comfort. The first one, this one is called the pour thing. That's what it says right there on the bottom, the pour thing. If you've ever had difficulty pouring a glass of Sprite, this is for you. Now, I personally haven't really had a hard time with this since I was 4 or 5, but if you're in the market for something like this, that's something that exists. Now, number 2, have you ever been at Dairy Queen and been eating your ice cream and just thought, this is too much work, I should not have to do this? Good news for you, they now make a motorized ice cream cone that spins the ice cream around for you, so all you have to do is stick your tongue out. Pretty nifty. Now this one, I don't even know what it's called, and I honestly hope it's not sold anywhere. It's an arm that you attach to your chair so that you can take a nap without having to go like this. This has never been too cumbersome for me, but if it has for you, then there's an invention out there. Back to the food industry is the twirling spaghetti fork. If you've ever been eating spaghetti and just missed that perfect twirl, you felt like you couldn't achieve it, well, there's a fork for you. Unfortunately, it only has 2.5 stars. And then last but not least, in fact, this is the cream of the crop, what I would say is the dumbest one, the pet petter. Never touch your pets again. The review in the top left corner just says unique, not good, unique. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what's the point of having a pet if you don't want to pet it? If you never want to interact with or touch your pet, why do you have one? The good news is if you disagree with me and you're in the market for something like this, it pets not only cats, but dogs too. Very versatile. See, we design our entire lives. We invent around comfort and convenience. And this isn't always a bad thing. I don't think any of us are against microwaves or indoor plumbing because they make our lives easier. But we also know that we've all got an invention somewhat like this in our house. One that is just really lazy. And we all love it too. It's probably our favorite thing in the house. We look at this and I see that we are so in love with comfort. And we need to ask, why? Why are we so in love with comfort? Now, the easy answer is that it's safe, it's secure, it's reliable, it's easy, right? And there's a time and a place for this. Some of you, and I hope not, but some of you might have a boyfriend or girlfriend someday that's going to try to push you out of your comfort zone physically. And while they're attempting to do this, you might think, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't know if this is glorifying to God. That's an example where that safety and security is there for a reason. That's a good comfort zone that you should fight to maintain, and they should fight to respect. Another example of a place where this is important is if you have a job someday that's very demanding on your time and your energy, it requires you to put in extra hours, more than 40 hours a week, not just a 9 to 5. You will need to set boundaries to make time for your friends, your family, and yourself, because otherwise you're going to burn out. It's an example where we need rest. We need comfort in our lives. We're designed as humans to have rest. The issue comes when it's time to leave, because there's always a time to leave the comfort zone. And many of us have fallen so in love with it that we refuse to do so. I've taken the liberty of drawing up a diagram detailing exactly why we need to leave our comfort zone. See, why do we need to leave safety, security, reliability, and ease? Why do we need to leave that? Well, prepare yourselves, brace yourselves. It's a very extensive, confusing diagram, and I wouldn't be surprised if Harvard scientists aren't able to understand it, but don't worry, I'm going to explain it all. Okay, are you ready? Brace yourselves. Don't get overwhelmed. Here it is. See this orange circle right there? That's our comfort zone. If you look, it's restrictive. That's where we like to hang out. That's what's safe. That's what's easy. That's what we know. This gray area represents new things, new social situations, new activities, new friends, new places, new hobbies. It's dangerous, potentially. It's uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. That black dot is where the magic happens. See, if we refuse to leave our orange circle, we refuse to leave our comfort zone, we severely limit our potential to grow as people. And this affects all areas of life: daily tasks, finances, interests, hobbies, relationships, dreams, and most importantly, spirituality. What do I mean? Well, I gave you my 2K example for the first one, daily tasks and schedules, finances. We maybe could give money to the poor or invest it in the future and for our retirement. Give it to our church, but we would rather more comfortably buy another pair of shoes, buy a new bracelet, buy more fast food, buy the new Madden, buy what we want to buy. And that's not always a bad thing. There's a time and a place for it, but there's also a time when we're called to leave our comfort zone. Think about interests and hobbies. If you only stuck to what you were comfortable doing, you would never learn any new hobbies, never learn any new sports, any new instruments, never learn anything new. And in your own hobby that you already liked, you would only stick to what you naturally know. You would never even get better in that hobby. If we think about relationships, gave an example of a comfort zone in relationship earlier that was good. What about when it comes time to have uncomfortable conversations, when there's conflict that arises, or when it's time to be vulnerable? These are uncomfortable things, and if we are incapable or refuse to do these things, it's going to limit the growth that we can have in that relationship. Same thing with dreams. If we're afraid to go for it, if we only stick to what we know, chances are we're not going to achieve all that we would like to. And that brings me to spirituality. We're going to look at a story from Matthew 19. If you watched the intro video, it was referenced in that. It was the rich man that asked Jesus, "How must I get to heaven? What good must I have to do?" Jesus replies, verse 17, "If you want to enter life, you need to keep the commandments." "Which ones?" he goes. Jesus says, "Well, don't kill, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, honor your parents, and love your neighbor as yourself." Verse 20, the man goes, "Psh, is that it? I've kept all of these. What else you got?" Which is bullcrap. But if it's not, Jesus continues and says, "If you want to be perfect, sell your possessions and give to the poor. Then you'll have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. And Jesus tells his disciples it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. The disciples ask, "Well, who can be saved?" And Jesus says, "With man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible." See, it's not inherently evil. It's not inherently bad or sinful or wrong to be rich or have possessions. Wealth is not sinful in and of itself. The issue is that attached to wealth often is comfort, and oftentimes the means to wealth is an unhealthy or incorrect priorities surrounded around wealth, and comfort. The other thing is, with comfort comes complacency, and we see this man clearly gets hit where it hurts. When Jesus is asking him to give up his comfort, give up his possessions, give up his wealth, this is something that he's wrestling with. And we're not told what he does, but it's clear that he's got a very high value on this. See, the issue is when we feel like we don't need God, we forget him. Now, that's a quote from the song, "When we feel like we don't need God, then we forget him. We tell him that if you don't make me money or make me happy, then I am making time for you, so make it snappy." And the issue is that we treat God like this genie figure, like he's supposed to give us what we want. If we follow him and keep his commandments, then he'll give us what we want and we'll be comfortable. And the issue with that is that comfort was never the end goal. Jesus never said, "Follow me and be comfortable." Comfort was never supposed to be the top priority. And when we make it that, if we're honest, we let comfort get in the way of our relationship with God. How many of you watching, be honest, have ever gotten to the end of a day and you think, I should probably read my Bible? And you think, that's just a lot of work, energy, focus. I've been thinking all day. I'm just going to watch an episode of Netflix instead. We let comfort get in the way of God. What if instead of using all of our free time to do things that are comfortable, asking ourselves, what do I want to do? Spending that time on social media or Netflix, Hulu, on our phones, playing video games. Not that those are bad things. Do them sometimes. But what if instead of spending all of our time focusing on these things that get in the way of God, we asked God to get us out of our comfort zones. We prayed more. We made a habit of being in Scripture and listening to what God has to tell us. I think you would probably get to be a part of some pretty extraordinary things. See, if we look at Scripture and we look at the heroes of the faith, Abraham, Noah, Moses, Peter, Paul, the people that we talk about thousands of years later, it's not that they're extraordinary people. It's not that they have superpowers. It's not that they're superhuman, that they're somehow a better human being than any of the rest of us, and we're given things that we weren't given. They're ordinary. The difference is that they obey. Even when it means leaving everything they know, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means leaving that orange circle, they obey. And we're going to look at the story of Moses. I think Moses is a good example for us to look at because he doesn't do a perfect job. Moses is a very, very flawed dude, and he fights God on his calling, like I think a lot of us do too. And the backstory for what we're going to be reading tonight is that Moses grew up as a Hebrew in Egypt. The Hebrew people were oppressed by the Egyptians, but Moses was adopted into the royal family as a baby. So there's this inner conflict and inner struggle of his blood, his kin, his relatives are being oppressed, they're in slavery, they're being treated poorly, to say the least. But he is growing up in the royal family and gets to avoid that. Well, one day this causes him to snap, and he sees an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew, and he decides to kill him. So he kills him. He thinks nobody's looking until word eventually gets out, and Pharaoh plans to kill Moses. So what does he do? He flees to Midian to his father-in-law's and becomes a shepherd, and his family settles down out in the fields away from danger, and they become shepherds. They set up a life for themselves. And this is all fine and dandy until one day God says that I need to let the Israelites out of Egypt. I need somebody to lead them out of Egypt. So he sends Moses to the burning bush. And we are going to look at a little bit of the conversation that Moses and God had as he was being prepped to go out and do this great thing. Starting in Exodus 3, God says, "So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I will be with you, and this will be the sign that it is I, who have sent you. When you've brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain." Moses says, in essence, why me? I'm not good enough. How many of you, that sounds like a conversation that you've had? God has clearly called you to do something. Maybe he doesn't speak audibly to you. In fact, he probably doesn't, but he's called you. He's put something on your heart that you know it's your job to carry out. And rather than do it or get excited about it, you say, why me? I'm not good enough, God. That sounds like a familiar conversation. Take comfort in knowing that God has said, I will be with you. No, sometimes you're not good enough. In fact, to do all of the things that God has called you to do, you aren't good enough. You are inadequate. You are human. Only God can do those. But he doesn't ask you to do something all on your own. He asks you to obey and says, I will be with you. We keep reading now in Exodus 4. Moses answered, "What if they don't believe me or listen to me? What if they say the Lord didn't appear to you?" Then the Lord said to him, "What's in your hand?" "A staff." The Lord says, "Throw it on the ground." So Moses throws it on the ground, it becomes a snake, and then God tells him to pick it up, so he does, and it becomes a staff again. In verse 5, God says, "This is so they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, has appeared to you, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob." In other words, Moses says, what if I look like I'm crazy or I'm lying? How many of us are afraid to do what God has called us to do in our lives, afraid to step out of our comfort zones because of what other people will say or what other people will think? What if I look stupid? What if I look crazy? What if I look like I'm lying? Well, first of all, God doesn't tell us to make decisions based on other people's approval, but on His. But the other thing is that if there is something that requires you to speak to others, if there is something that requires you to step out in faith and maybe look a little crazy, God promises that He's going to provide what you need. If He needs people to not think you're crazy, in Moses' case, and this one maybe doesn't always apply to us quite as much, He's going to provide that proof, that evidence. We keep reading Exodus 4. Moses said to the Lord, "Pardon, but I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you've spoken to me. I'm slow of speech and of tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I? Now go, and I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." Does this sound like a familiar conversation? How many of us have ever just thought, I'm not skilled enough? See, I want to be a student leader. I want to speak up on my football team, but I'm just not skilled enough. I'm not a good speaker. I can't do this. I'm not talented in that area. Chances are sometimes you won't be. That God will call you out of your comfort zone into something that you're not talented or you don't know much about. But thankfully, God has also told us that if that's what He has for you, if that's where He's leading you, He's going to teach us along the way. Now, this doesn't mean you can go try anything and instantly become good at it, right? If you've never played hockey and you decide you want to be an NHL player, God's not going to magically make you a phenomenal hockey player. That's not what I'm saying. The point is that if there's something that He's called us to do that's outside of our skill level, which oftentimes it is, He's told us that He will teach and instruct us along the way. Now we keep reading the next verses. Moses finally says, "Pardon, but please send somebody else." See, then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and He said, "What about your brother Aaron? I know he can speak well. He's already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You should speak to him and put words in his mouth, and then I will help both of you speak and teach you what to do." Finally, Moses just says, "I don't want to go. Please send somebody else." Sometimes when there's something that's been put on our hearts, something that we know is something we are supposed to do, we still want to do it. Option A is more comfortable than this new option that we're being called to. It's what I like. I had a time where I was interning at a church in college, and I really, really liked it there. I really liked the people, I really liked the pastors, the staff, the church. I liked it. I loved it. And it came a time for the internship to end, and I had to go back to camp. Now, I like camp. I love camp. But I was really, really sad to leave this internship. And as I was driving out of the parking lot for the first time, I saw this rock that they have there. This big boulder with words printed on it that I had not really read before, but I read it this time and it said, "Go and serve." I was like, all right, God. See, God tells us, go. Maybe you don't like it as much. Maybe not at first. But go. This is what I have planned for you. And if you need somebody else, if I think you need somebody else, I'll send somebody with you. We know what happens next, right? Moses leads the people out of Egypt, gets to do one of the greatest things in human history, and none of it is because he's some superhuman with superpowers. Moses obeys God, and he messes up and he gets punished for those times, but he obeys God throughout the course of this journey and gets to do great things because of it. Now, I'm going to challenge you guys, if you feel like your faith is stagnant, if any of these questions are relatable, why don't I get to see cool things happen? Why do I feel distant from God? Could be because you're still here. Now, not necessarily, especially with that third question. We're not always called to get to reap the reward of the harvest. We're called to sow the seeds. But it could be because you're here. And I would challenge you guys to ask God for ways to get out of your comfort zone. Pray and ask Him specifically, show me opportunities to love other people, to try new things, to be your servant, to glorify you publicly. Ask God for ways to get out of your comfort zone. Another thing you can do is learn. Learn new things, new skills, new activities, go to new places, try new things. I hate doing that most of the time. But it's important for us to do in order to grow. And then lastly, ask God to use you. Ask God to use you in crazy ways. Now, those are dangerous prayers because they force us to go out into the gray and leave the orange circle. But I'm going to close with this. A ship is safe in a harbor. A ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. See, the ocean is scary. It's got hurricanes and waves and wind and krakens, probably. But a ship wasn't built to sit in a harbor. It was built to sail.